So they're called foolish virgins. You know why they're called foolish virgins? According to Matthew 26 to 27, and everyone that heareth the sayings of mine and doeth them shall be likened, and doeth them not shall be likened unto a foolish man, which built his house upon the sand. So foolish virgins actually, they hear the words, but they don't want to follow. The message is being given to them, but it seems like the message is just coming to this ear and goes back to the other side. You know, uh, they're not really practicing the truth, and that's why they're called foolish virgins. Now, what's another name for foolish virgins? Now, let's try to discuss this. What's another name for foolish virgins? All right. It says here that according to Review and Herald, August 19, 1890, paragraph 10, the state of the church represented by the foolish virgins is also spoken of as the Laodicean state. So foolish virgins are they have a Laodicean condition. They're lukewarm, okay? They're lukewarm. Now, are foolish virgins mediums of Satan? Let's find out. It says here that in Review and Herald, August 19, 1890, paragraph 5, Satan uses those who claim to believe the truth, but whose light has become darkness, as his mediums, to utter his falsehood and transmit his darkness. They are foolish virgins indeed, choosing darkness rather than light and dishonoring God. So foolish virgins are mediums of Satan. Okay, they're mediums, they're agents of Satan. But who are the most effective agents of Satan? Oh, the most effective agents are like the foolish virgins. Why? Because they have the lukewarm condition. Okay, they're lukewarm. It says here, half-hearted Christians are worse than infidels, for their deceptive words and non-committal position led many astray. The infidel shows his colors. The lukewarm Christian deceives both parties. He is neither a good worldling nor a good Christian. Satan uses him to do a work that no one else can do. Think about that. Laodiceans, foolish virgins, are the same, and they are the most effective agents of Satan. So don't tell me that Laodiceans are going to make it to heaven. They are actually agents of Satan. Okay? Why? Because they're lukewarm. They can actually deceive both parties here. Okay? Can Laodicean make it to heaven? No, they're not going to make it to heaven. It says here, if the church of God becomes lukewarm, so we're talking about a church here now. If a church of God becomes lukewarm, it does not stand in favor with God anymore. Then do the churches that are represented as having fallen and become the habitations of devils, and the howl of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Those who have had opportunities to hear and receive the truth, and who have united with the Seventh-day Adventist Church, calling themselves the commandment-keeping people of God, and yet possess no more vitality and consecration to God than do the nominal churches, will receive the plagues of God, just as verily as the churches who oppose the law of God. Only those that are sanctified through the truth will compose the royal family in the heavenly mansions Christ has gone to prepare for those that love him and keep his commandments. So if a church becomes lukewarm, it does not stand in favor with God. Why? Because you are agents of Satan. You cannot do that. I mean, Christ is not going to accept you because you are the most effective agents of Satan. Does the message to the Laodiceans applies to God's people today? Oh yes, it says here, I saw that the testimony to the Laodiceans applied to God's people at the present time. And the reason it has not accomplished a greater work is because the hardness of their hearts. You know, Laodiceans is hard to reach because they think they know better. They think they have everything, when in fact they have nothing. They are what? Blind and naked, it says there. Okay? So it says here that the testimony to the Laodiceans applied to God's people. People today in the churches are lukewarm. You know, why? Because they're conforming to the world. So it says here, can Christ's presence be in the Laodicean church? You know, people boast that we are the last church, the Laodicean church. Can Christ's presence be in the Laodicean church? According to Notebook Leaflets, Volume 1, page 99, paragraph 4, the church is in the Laodicean state. The presence of God is not in her midst. If Christ were formed within the hope of glory, conformity to his image would be seen, and the church trials which separate the members from Christ would disappear. So Christ's presence is not in the Laodicean church. Okay? So if Christ's presence is not there, then whose presence is there? Well, of course, the enemy, right? The enemy. Now, what contributes lukewarmness in the church? Why is it that the church is lukewarm? What contributes that lukewarmness in the church? It says here, the Lord calls upon his people to repent and to do their first works. He admonishes them to examine themselves whether they are in the faith, whether their hopes are well-founded, whether they are not petting and excusing defects of character when they should be going on to perfection. The worldliness in the church, which is the great cause of spiritual death, is attributable to the influence of selfish, loving members. So what contributes lukewarmness? Worldliness. People are conforming to the practices of the world, the traditions of the world, the customs and traditions. They are, they're being converted to the world, basically. Okay? The progress of this deadly malady must be checked. The surgeon's knife cuts deep when it is necessary to remove festering, pestilent matter. So the word of God, sharper than any two-edged sword, must be made to cut to the heart, or the evil will never be removed. When the plain testimony is given, some will say, my hope is gone. I have no religion. I give it all up. Those who really want to be Christ will receive reproof, put away their sins, and take their stand on the side of Jesus. That is supposed to be our attitude, that when someone corrects, rebukes, we have to be willing to accept it, because that's the only way that we can change. But Laodicean thinks they have everything. They know better. And that's why what contributes is worldliness. Okay? Now in 1891, the East Day Church was given this warning. The Seventh-day Adventist Church was given this warning. The world must not be introduced into the church and married to the church, forming a bond of unity. Through this means, the church will become indeed corrupt, and as stated in Revelation, a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. So 1891, actually this warning was repeated in 1895 as well. Okay, was repeated, and it says here in Review and Herald, February 26, 1895, the world must not be introduced into the church and married to the church. Through union with the world, the church will become corrupt, a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. The customs of the world must not have a place, for they will be open doors through which the prince of darkness will find access, and the line of demarcation will become indistinguishable between him that serveth God and him that serveth him not. So when you actually conform to the world, the line of demarcation will be indistinguishable. You're not able to be distinguished, because you will look the same as the world, right? You know, we can be in this world but not of the world. You know, the followers of Christ should not be following the traditions, the customs of this world. What is the description of Babylon in Revelation 18 verse 2? It says here, Revelation 18 verse 2, and he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and has become the habitations of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. So when the world is introduced into the church and married to the church, forming a band of unity, the church will become corrupt, and it says here they will become what? They will become Babylon. They will become a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. So every church today that is in a Laodicean condition, they are just like in a cage. They're like in a cage. That means they are being trapped. They don't have no freedom. They're in bondage. Somebody is controlling them. You need to get out of that atmosphere, because there is no freedom. Okay? When a church becomes lukewarm, you are like in a cage, because that's what it says here. So the world must not be introduced, because if the world is in the church will become Babylon. Okay? They will become a cage of every unclean and hateful bird, even though there is no such thing as a thus saith the Lord. You cannot find it in the Bible that this church is already Babylon. No, you cannot. But by their fruits ye shall know them. You don't have to look for a thus saith the Lord. All you need to do is find out what is the definition of Babylon. Okay? Now it says here in Patriarchs and Prophets, page 124, paragraph 1, the term Babylon, which prophecy Revelation 14 verse 8 and Revelation 18 verse 2 applies to world-loving churches of the last days. So when a church becomes worldly, that's Babylon. Okay? Even though you cannot find in the spirit prophecy that this church is Babylon, you don't have to look for that. All you need to do is, if the church is worldly, is acting like the world, then that is Babylon. Okay? That's Babylon. That means you are in a cage. And if you're in a cage, you are in bondage, you don't have no liberty, no freedom whatsoever. Okay? Now, what happened in 1900? Okay? So the warning was given in 1891 and also in 1895 that the world must not be introduced. But what happened in 1900? According to Christ of Jaclassen 3:15, the professed followers of Christ are no longer separate and peculiar people. The line of demarcation is indistinct. The people are subordinating themselves to the world, to its practices, its customs, its selfishness. The church has gone over to the world in transgression of the law, when the world should have come over to the church in obedience to the law. Daily, the church is being converted to the world. That's 1900. And this one is taken from volume 8, 118, paragraph 4. It is a solemn and terrible truth that many who have been zealous in proclaiming the third angel's message are now becoming listless and indifferent. The line of demarcation between worldlings and many professed Christians is almost indistinguishable. Many who once were earnest Adventists are conforming to the world, to its practices, its customs, its selfishness. Instead of leading the world to render obedience to God's law, the church is uniting more and more closely with the world in transgression. Daily, the church is becoming converted to the world. How many professing Christians are slaves of mammon? Their indulgence of appetite, their extravagant expenditure of money for selfish gratification greatly dishonor God. So